I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if we could have a moment of silence and just remember overseas, Ukraine. We've got somebody going to speak here at public comment that has family over there, so he's going to give us a little insight on what happened back years ago because his mother and father's over there. So just a moment of silence, please. Okay. I'd like to put to a vote for Michael. Garrison is not here, but he is online, for him to be able to vote on anything on the agenda tonight.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. All in favor? Got that, Michael?
Thank you. I
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
it, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Agenda approval.
Mr. Chairman, I have no changes in the agenda unless someone else does, and I move that we approve it as posted and as sent to the commissioners in advance.
I'll second that.
Discussion. All in favor? All right. Next is approval of the February 8th, 2022 regular meeting minutes, February the 21st, 2022 special minutes, February 22nd, 2022 special meetings. Have y'all had time to look at those?
Mr. Chair, having reviewed those minutes in advance of this meeting, and assuming they have not been altered since they were sent out to us electronically, I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? All right. Let's move on down to public comment. This is Mike Too Easy. Mike's mother and father still live over there, and in our earlier meeting, he had took the time to explain some stuff that happened back. I'll let him say it was years ago. So,
Thank you, gentlemen. My name's Mike Tuzzi. For those of you who don't know me, my parents are both Ukrainian. In 1939, Russia invaded Ukraine for the first time. Actually, the first of many times, but they did it on the premise that they were saving us. My dad was 7 years old at the time. His father, one day after it happened, told him if we ever see the troops coming down our drive, to run and never look back. 2 days later, the troops came. While my dad ran for his life, the Russians shot him, his father, in the back. My dad was found by an older woman who protected him and saved him and kept him from the soldiers. In 1941, the Germans did the same thing on their way to Moscow. So when you see the death and destruction in the streets on the news, you watch the mothers with their young children and you feel sorrow. I see my mom and my dad. So I'm asking you to pray for Ukraine. Slava Ukraina. It's a term that Ukrainians use. It means glory to Ukraine. The Russians hated it so much that in the 50s they banned its use. So it's our way of giving them the finger. Slava Ukraine.
thank you, Mike.
Thank
Thank you, Mike.
Next on the agenda is James Bentz
Good evening, James.
with Malden and Jenkins.
How's everyone this evening?
Well, great.
Thank you for having me here. I believe I'm sharing the screen for the presentation, but I'm going to go over the results of the June 30, 2021 audit. And I've got our auditor's discussion and analysis, which is what I'll primarily go through. And then we have your financial statements handy to look at any questions in there. I'm not going to read every slide that's in here. I'll kind of skip around and get the highlights. But certainly, if you all have any questions as we come across them, please feel free to jump in and ask, and I'll do my best to try to get an answer for you this evening. So with that, jumping into page 2 or slide 2, one of the things I like to kind of just touch on is just each time as we meet with the boards, just to give a little update on Malden & Jenkins and who we are. I know we kind of come before you all once a year, so just to remind you who we are in the relationship. But we're a regional firm. We've got offices in 7 states, and we serve about, I think right now we're up to close to 600 local governments throughout the Southeast. We have 11 partners, myself included, who do nothing but serve local governments year round. And that accounts for about 30% of what our firm does on the audit. And so just to give some reiteration and some background on local governments being a very important aspect of what Malden & Jenkins does. All of our audits have 2 partners involved. As I mentioned, I served as the engagement partner for the Madison County audit. I've been with Malden & Jenkins 18 years, working with local governments the entire time of my career. We had Tim Lyons this year who served as our quality control reviewer. He's independent of the audit process, but he does review the reports on the back end as well as the file, just to ensure that we've complied with all auditing standards. And so we try to rotate that second partner each year to kind of keep a fresh set of eyes on things. And the idea being that certainly under the independent standards, that helps to eliminate any concerns of familiarity with the client, and you have a second set of eyes doing a detailed review of the file. So Tim Lyons again served that role. At a very high level, just to always make sure that the board as well as the public understands the relationship, we are the external auditors. It's our responsibility to issue an opinion on the presentation of financial statements, which are prepared by the county's management team. We conduct our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards as well as government auditing standards. And what that means, again, is our responsibility is to give an opinion on your financial statements as to whether or not they're materially correct. Our opinion does not give absolute assurance, and the auditing standards, they do not have us test 100% of the transactions. So we did issue a clean opinion. It's called an unmodified opinion. Again, that does not mean that we've tested every transaction that happens within the county, but we did conduct testing in accordance with those standards to be able to issue our opinion on the presentation. In there, it's not always kind of jumping out on the page, so we always do want to, when we can say positive things, we do want to comment on, through the audit process, we do review your judgments and estimates that management uses in the preparation of those financial statements. That includes capital asset depreciation lines, the collectability of receivable accounts, assumptions used in your pension plans, and self-insured liability claims. Those all were reviewed as part of the audit process, and we did not note anything outside of the norm for local governments in North Carolina or counties as a whole in our practice area and within the standards. Also, along with your financial statement audit, you all have both a federal and single audit requirement. And so this year, for June 30, 2021, the county expended about $4.8 million for federal funds. Anytime you're above $750,000, you're required to have a federal single audit. And you've also expended about $1.6 million in state funding. And similarly, anytime you have expenditures in excess of $500,000, you're required to have a state single audit. The programs that are selected are based on risk assessment and, broadly speaking, historical testing. So major federal programs have to be audited once every 2 years or 3 years. And depending on new programs, obviously, this year for June 30, 2021, the Coronavirus Relief Fund was a new program and had not had the opportunity to be tested. So it obviously was a major fund and a type A program. So we did test 3 federal programs and we did test 3 state programs in accordance with requirements for both the OMB federal program and the state single audit act. We did issue unmodified opinions on all 3. All 6, 3 for the federal, 3 for the state. So a good, clean report all around, unmodified opinions on the financial statement reporting, federal compliance, and state compliance. On page 7, a couple of things I kind of want to point out here. We did have a couple of journal entries in this year's audit, and those have been reflected in your general ledger. They're reflected in the financial statements, and we'll kind of touch on some of those as we go a little further into the report. And then as far as the relationship with management, always happy to report to the board when we are able to. We had no difficulty working with management. Carrie does a great job getting us the information and working with us through the process. Anyone who's never had the pleasure of going through an audit, I say it's a wonderful time, and a lot of people agree with me. But we do ask for a lot of things up front, and then we do ask for a lot of things along the way. So we appreciate the cooperation and the assistance in getting the audit wrapped. Going to page 9, we'll start to get into kind of the financial highlights, if you will, and then we've kind of gone through some of the prior communications. And a lot of times when you talk about how did the year go for local government, kind of the easy place that a lot of people will look is your general. Obviously, all local governments have a general fund. Not all general funds look the same, but that is typically the first stop when someone's trying to evaluate how the year went. And so what we've got here is kind of a 3-year trend of where your fund balance of the general fund has landed for the last 3 years. I always like to point out and remind everyone fund balance doesn't necessarily equate to cash on hand. It is the difference in your assets and your liabilities at year end, and it's a point in time snapshot. But it is kind of the normal benchmark for looking at a general fund or looking at a local government. And so you'll see here the blue box of these bar graphs is your unassigned fund balance, and that is essentially your fund balance that is not restricted or committed in other means, and it's available to you going forward for appropriation or building your reserves. And so you can see this last year we had a nice jump, and we actually ended up close to 25% of our annual operating costs of the general fund are now sitting in available unassigned fund balance categories. That equates to about 90 days of operations. And as a benchmark of trying to evaluate what that means, GFOA, which is the Government Finance Association, they typically recommend to have somewhere between 40 and 60 days as your unassigned fund balance. And so you can see we've got that covered now with this year's increase. I do kind of like to just take a moment on that, and have been for the last 6 or 7 months now, to kind of say, as just a heads up or just an advance notice, GFOA has not amended that recommendation in several years, and obviously the economy we're in right now, nothing is at the same price it was 2 years ago, and all of inflation costs have significantly hit lots of local governments. So I do always want to make sure to express that just because we've hit the 60-day threshold doesn't necessarily mean that it's a great idea to go ahead and drop it back down into the 40-day range. So we're making good progress, but certainly keep an eye on it and be aware of the decisions that do drive consumption of fund balance, whether it's one-time capital projects or ongoing recurring commitments. The other thing I'll point out with North Carolina that's very unique to the Southeast is the LGC has a mandate for the State Stabilization Reserve, where they require you to restrict a component of your fund balance, which is essentially anything not in cash. And so if you take that out, compare yourselves kind of apples to GFOA's benchmark, because again, that's the national organization. They have you at 121 days between your restricted state stabilization and your unassigned fund balance. Going to slide 11, excuse me. We call this our airplane view of your general funds fund balance. So we're going to fly at 30,000 feet, and we're going to look at total revenues and total expenditures rather than getting into the details. And you'll see we've got several columns here. We've got your original appropriations, the various amendments that were approved throughout the year, and then your final column here represents the final approved budget by board. Actual is where the year ended for June 30, 2021. So you can see we made about $3 million of increases in our revenues, as well as about $3 million of increases in our expenditures for the year. As you go over and look at the actual numbers, we still came in over budget on our revenues by $800,000 and under budget on our expenditures by about $3 million. And so when you kind of think back to that fund balance slide we just looked at, you can see for the year ending June 30, 2021, we added about $3 million to our general fund balance through operation. Then we'll jump to the landfill fund. It's a little bit different, that they deal with the accounting of the landfill fund on a full accrual basis, so it's not the same basis of accounting as a governmental general fund. So we typically go to the cash flow statements for the landfill fund. You can see this year, but again, for the year ending June 30, 2021, our cash flows from operations was a negative $700,000. Kind of in the bottom right corner of the slide, to kind of put that in perspective, our cash flows from operations for the last 2 years. Last year, we were a negative $104,000. In 2019, we had positive cash flows from operations of $63,000. So you can see the trend of where we're going with cash flows from the landfill fund, from operations, and what that means is just continuing to evaluate both the revenues we generate from the landfill charges, as well as the costs we're having operating the landfill fund. Then jumping to page 13, there's some new slides in here. As a general overview, some of the LGC North Carolina code was changed last year with the LGC, and they now have certain snippets of information that we have to provide in the meetings to the board. And so they put together a spreadsheet that we fill out, and it documents different items of information to be communicated. We've kind of talked about the fund balance. This is a little bit different perspective. So they take the counties for all of North Carolina, which have a general fund budgeted expenditures below 100 million, and they aggregate all of those numbers. And so you'll see for 21, you ended at 33% of your fund balance being available, and they took the median of all of the governments, all of the counties with a budget less than 100 million, and that median number was 39%. So while you were in a better place than we have been in the past, you are below the median for counties in the bucket that LGC categorizes you. And so again, back to the point I made earlier, we've made good progress, we're in a good position, but it doesn't necessarily mean stop there. The next slide is a few kind of, I don't necessarily call them yes/no questions, but outputs from the report that the LGC's put together. And so it deals with different performance indicators for this last year and having that information provided. So the first one on here was the 2021 audit submitted within the December 1st timeline. And the answer to that was no. Did we have more than 3% of our tax levy uncollected? At the end of the year, our uncollected percentage was 4%, so we're close, but not quite on the 3% number. And then did we have an expected decrease in property values for next year? We had no as an expected decrease there. And then does the county have an effective pre-audit process? And the answer to that was yes. And so those are kind of the 4 performance indicators that the LGC is looking to have answered each year and then presented to the board for your knowledge and your update each year on where the county stands. Going into page 15, a few other outtakes from the audit. We did have one segregation of duties, material weakness, and a couple of other items that we'll go to on the next 2 slides. The segregation of duties deals with, due to the small size of the accounting staff in the finance department, there is a lot of overlap where one individual has access to multiple phases of the accounting process. So certainly not the ideal control environment, but certainly not a surprise. This has been a finding for a couple of years now. And I know from talking to Carrie, there's pieces in the work that kind of help mitigate some of these areas where segregation can't be achieved right now. But these are areas where one individual has access or the ability to do multiple phases of the same process. And so certainly want to work to try to separate those as we can, or mitigate them where we can't separate them due to personnel numbers. On page 16, we had one journal entry, which was a restatement to the landfill fund dealing with in June 30, 2022, June 30, 2020, their share of the Elger's net pension liability was over allocated to the solid waste fund and under allocated to governmental activities. So in total, the liability was correct, but who was reporting a share of it? They had too much in their bucket, if you will, in the fund last year. And so this is just reallocating that NPL, net pension liability, between governmental activities and the landfill fund. And that reallocation adjustment was about $137,000 between the two. The second item on this page deals with ensuring that we have legally adopted budgets in accordance with the code section. And so this year, with the change, with the implementation of GASB Statement number 84, there was a new fund that was created. It represented a payee fund, which when it was created near the end of the year, did not get a budget set for it. And then additionally, in here, there are several departments or functions within the various funds that had expenditures in excess of budget. But these were expenditures where we had revenues come in excess of budget, and we just didn't have a budget amendment to account for the additional revenues being spent. And so we've talked with management, and we've kind of gone over how to make sure at the end of the year we have these situations of excess revenues, and we're expending those additional revenues to ensure we get the budget amendments in at the end of the year to kind of go ahead and cover what we're planning to spend those additional revenues on. Then we had two items that we consider just management recommendations. They're certainly of a smaller scale, but things that we still deem are important, and we do want to make sure they get communicated. Item number 1 on here deals with the information technology framework. This is something we talked about last year. Certainly, as you all know, local governments are kind of a target right now on the IT front. The county's been making strides to improve and put processes in place to improve their framework, their security measures, and there's still some room for improvement where we are. And one of the things that we talked about as we continue to build out our framework and our risk assessment of the IT environment is to start to evaluate, are we ready to contract with an independent external firm to test the operational functionality of our framework that we have in place. And so I like to give the analogy of you have a finance department, and then you have a firm come in and do an audit on the reporting of the finance department. Currently, you have an IT department who's building in this framework and putting together the risk assessment models to get everything in place. And it's a good practice to have someone come in and kind of test the vulnerabilities, test the recovery of information, and just make sure that you've got sound policies and procedures in place for that framework once it's up and running. And then based on those results, obviously, you all can evaluate the frequency of those external tests based on the outcome. And then the last item on here deals with compensated absence. This is just, it's a journal entry that's happening based on information coming from management, happening after the audit starts. And so the recommendation is just to make sure that we get these balances put in as part of the fiscal year closeout, so they're ready for the audit rather than them being provided during the audit. Kind of a timeliness of when it's put together. And then slide 18, this is again a new slide and a new item. You all dealt with this last year with the audit. It wasn't quite effective as a code section yet, but now it is something that's required. So with the completion of this evening's meeting, under the new code section, you all have to submit a response to the LGC within 60 days of today's date with a corrective action plan for the findings that were part of this year's audit and the items noted in the presentation this evening. And so we've talked with Carrie. I think this is something that's probably, if not already in the process, it will be very shortly. But it is a new requirement. There is a link in here for that to be uploaded by management once that information is And then as a follow-up, I mentioned we had a couple of findings last year. Just to give you a quick update on where those are at the end of this year. So last year with the June 30, 2020 audit, we had the segregation of duties finding. That item was a repeat. We just went over it a few slides ago. We also had equity reconciliation issues in June 30, 2020. That's been resolved in this year's closeout. We did not have any of those similar adjustments. So again, always appreciative when we have issues that are cleaned up, if you will. And then in the state single audit in June 30, 2020, and really even back in 2019, the county's rope program had some findings dealing with compliance requirements that they were not meeting with eligibility, determination, allowable costs, and allowable period of availability. For June 30, 2021, we didn't have road funding. The state didn't fund that. We were funded with CARES dollars from transportation programs. So those weren't per se resolved. They just were not in place for June 30, 2020 because that funding source wasn't there. So those have been responded as such to the state. I'm going to wrap it up. A couple of things here. On page 21 and going for several slides, GASB, which is the standard setting body for local governments, they've issued GASB statement number 87 through 97 have been issued currently and will be applicable for the county in the next 2 to 3 years. GASB number 87 will be implemented June 30, 2022, and then over the next couple of years, we'll get to the rest of those. These are here for your information. Really, just to kind of touch on 87 at a very high level. The intent is we're essentially going to do away with the old terms of operating capital leases, and any contracts which the county has an agreement to make payments that extend beyond 12 months, now under GASB 87, those will just be deemed as leases. And so the county is going to work through evaluating leases that we hold as lessee or lessor to see which ones, if any, may fall under this new accounting guidance. To piggyback on that, as we kind of go here to the end, one thing that we do and we offer to our clients management team as well as to governance is we do both quarterly CPE and then we do newsletters that go out through email to all of our clients. And so if you're not currently receiving any of those and would like to, please let me know. And again, all this comes out through email. So we'll send an email each quarter of the training opportunities, and management or governance are welcome to sign up and register for those classes. But we do use those as well as our newsletters to kind of help keep everyone informed of what new standards and statements are coming out. With that, if you all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Y'all have any questions? Matt?
No.
James, I want to thank you and specifically thank Carrie for all of your hard work. And as you know, we have just added a full-time person to the finance office staff this week. I believe we have improved the county's financial position over the last year, ending in June of last year, significantly, as you pointed out, with the fund balance and with very aggressive budgeting. And we look forward to a continued good working relationship. And I appreciate your time and efforts this evening.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care. Stay safe.
You too.
Next on the agenda is Ann Tuizy Madison Friendship Time.
Let me just make one comment that his slides, a copy of those, we will get from his presentation and get them out to you the next day or two. Okay?
So,
Anna, good evening.
good evening.
Good evening. Let me up real quick.
Michael, can you hear?
Yeah, I hear you.
Hi, Michael. Okay, I'm just gonna follow along here. The report's also there, and I think you have copies as well.
Yes.
Thank you all for allowing me to represent on behalf of the Madison Friendship Fund Committee. We wanted to just give you a quick update on the work that we did over the past 22 months. And and you have a copy in your packet as well. The Madison Friendship Fund, as you know, was formed as a grassroots organization at the suggestion of your Board of Commissioners, with a mission of helping Madison County residents who were economically impacted by COVID-19. And when we started it, we knew there were a lot of people that were going to be impacted or already were impacted. We just didn't know how widespread the problem would be. So our goal was to help them with life essential needs that they couldn't meet because they lost their job or they had medical issues or whatever it might be that were caused by COVID-19. All payments were made directly to the vendor. So if they had let's say a rent payment due, we paid their landlord directly. And I break down the numbers for you in a little bit here. But I did want to go through who the volunteer committee, because we were all volunteers, and it was community driven. Initially, the team was Tammy Cody, which of course all of you know, Madison County Health Director. Rachel Potter, who works in the health department, is the MAT and HCV program coordinator. Connie Harris, Director of Social Services for Madison County. Reverend Pat Hardy, who's a pastor of Walnut Presbyterian Church, and then Madison community members Ike Lassiter, O'Neill Shelton, and myself. In addition, I want to call out two very important people that helped us a lot. Bill Downey, who works with Madison County, he generously gave his time and efforts to build our website. He did it very quickly. He took on maintenance of the website, made sure everything ran appropriately, linked it to PayPal so people could contribute via PayPal. Without Bill, we couldn't have gotten the website up and going, quite honestly. None of us had that skill set. Also, Mary Kelly, who lives over in the Laurel community, does a lot of grant writing for various organizations around the county. She was incredibly helpful on writing grants, and we did write several of those with Mary's help. And then my husband, Mike Tuzzi, created a poster for us that we put up all over the county so everybody would be aware of what the program was, how to apply, who to contact. And we posted that throughout the county, from Mars Hill to over in Spring Creek. We put this together very, very quickly because we knew this was a big problem that we needed to address right away. And what I've put together here is kind of a startup timelines of the things we did and how quickly it all came together. I think we were first approached back in about mid-May of 2020. And the first thing we had to do immediately was find a fiduciary who could help us manage the funding, because we were not a 501c3. So we worked with Russ Blevins and Jessica Holtz at Mountain Valley RC&D. And again, without them, we could not have done this. They managed all the money for us. They wrote the checks to the vendors. They set up a bank account for us. Any audit trail that we needed, they kept track of all that. So they were outstanding to work with. Our first official meeting was actually 5/21, May 21st. And at that point, we talked to Bill. He got the domain name and the hosting, everything set up for us. And in just a couple of weeks, he had the website completely up and running, ready to go. So it came together very quickly. We put an MOU in place between Madison Friendship Fund and Mountain Valleys, and we received our first donation from Fate Foundation for $3,000 to get us going. Because we knew there'd be expenses. There's expenses for hosting a website, for building the website, the framework around that. So we had things like that. We had, and you'll see in a little bit, all the different printing materials that we put together. So that helped get us started. Walnut Presbyterian Church also gave $1,000 to get us going very quickly. By 5/28, the end of May, we had printed up 2,000 handouts and 200 flyers ready to post throughout the county and to distribute to the schools. And I'll take you through some of that. We had to do a lot of start activities. The handouts we took to all the food pantries around the county and gave out about 200 of those to make everybody aware of what was going on and how, if they were impacted, how to apply, or to tell their neighbors if their neighbors needed help. We also worked with the Madison County Schools to put flyers in all the lunch boxes, which went home to the students, because it was summer, the students were no longer in class, and we needed a way to make their families aware. We also worked with Beacon of Hope, and they handed out about 300 of the flyers on their own. We had talked to all the churches that we could in the county, asking them to make their congregations aware, posted on their Facebook page. French Broad, I talked to them a number of times. They were very helpful in publishing it in their Electrifier newsletter to get the word out. We did things like go to barbecues and give out handouts, little flyers, anything we could think of to get the word out. The Madison County Library, Kim Belafonte was very good about putting this into their newsletter and to broadcast it to everybody. The Chamber of Commerce publicized it for us. WHBK and WART ran PSAs, public service announcements for us, so folks would hear about it there. There were stories in both the Weaverville Tribune and the local News Record Sentinel about it. And then we did a little 30-second segment or 45-second segment, my claim to fame, on WLOS TV on the news broadcast one night. So maybe everybody heard that. And then we applied for a number of grants. I listed a few here: Wells Fargo, the North Carolina Health Association, Ingalls, People in Need. There were 2 grants that we actually were issued. And yeah, Jimmy's already on the right page there. And then in October of 2020, we did a follow-up mailer and sent that out to 10,000 residents in Madison County. Anybody we had an address for, post office box or rural address, we sent out a mailer to make everybody aware a second time around that the program was going on. The original plan, I'm sure you recall, was to use CARES fundings. But we found out fairly early in the process that the CARES funds could not be distributed through Madison Friendship Fund and had to be administered through the county itself. So we did a quick pivot there. And we had already, as Madison Friendship Fund, had accepted a couple of applications in anticipation of this, but we did use some of the private donations that we had to go ahead and approve those. And then the CARES funding, which the county named the County General Assistance Fund, took over as of June 22nd of 2020. And those funds were fully distributed by the end of, actually the middle of December 18th of 2020. And at that point, we came back, and we had been doing fundraising as Madison Friendship Fund all this time. The funding came back to us, and we began processing applications. We had funding from private donations, businesses around the county, donations from churches. We received a foundation grant from the Community Foundation of Western North Carolina, and a second foundation grant from the People in Need grant. So we used all of those funds. There are a few types of payments, and I just wanted to break it down real quick, but the most common ones, honestly, that we received were for rent assistance and for electricity assistance. Those were by far the biggest two. But we had people that needed help with their mortgages. We had a few that needed internet service because they ran businesses out of their home. So they kind of ran the gamut: utilities, heating oil, you name it. We helped with it as long as it was something that was caused by COVID. So then next page, Jamie, if you'll flip there, the total program, one before that. There should be a page right there. Other way. There you go. No? Well, maybe it is. There should be one called total program revenue. Comes before the thank yous. Huh, weird. It's not popping in? Okay, well, I wanted to show you where the total revenue came from. You should have it in yours.
We do.
Okay, Primarily, as you can see, grants were the biggest source of our funding, but we did receive a good chunk of business donations, $8,500 from various businesses around Madison County, $4,000 through nonprofits in Madison County, $10,510 in private donations from individuals. We had some individuals that gave several times. So the total to Madison Friendship Fund was $45,510. The CARES funding was $58,120 for a grand total of funding that we got back to individuals in Madison County who needed help of $103,630. So hopefully we made a difference. The payment breakout, you can kind of see some of the numbers here. Total number of payments made through the CARES funding, and these numbers are estimated, they're not exactly the number, but about 190 different applications were approved, which translates to about 100 families through CARES funding alone. And then when Madison Friendship Fund started using our funds to fund it, we made 68 payments to different vendors. There were 49 total applicants, so we did have some applicants who came back a second time, and about 132 individuals. An average disbursement was $591, and the maximum, which we set up when we started with our bylaws, was $1,200 to any one family. Total payments to vendors between the two programs, 258. Total families helped, 149. And total individuals that we helped, over 532 individuals. So we had a fairly significant impact. On the next page, for some reason you don't have this one either. I'm not sure what happened there. The budget, the fund budget, I think you guys should have it though. You can just see the breakout, but the big picture here is that 83% of all the funding that came into Madison Friendship Fund went directly to individuals. There was very little in expenses. We tried to keep our expenses down as low. And obviously we're all volunteers, so you know there was nobody getting a salary here doing this. So we didn't want to spend any money we didn't have to that couldn't go directly to an individual. Mountain Valleys typically, as a fiduciary, charges a little more as a fee. They gave us a very nice discount to do this for us, so we were very thankful for that. I want to call out some special thank yous here. There were a lot of people that we want to thank. The churches, the businesses, public and private individuals, everybody. Obviously, I can't call everybody out, but we want to say a special thank you to everybody, but there are some people. Connie Harris and her staff at DSS, we absolutely could not have done this without Connie. None of us on the committee had the expertise to look at an application and determine if these people should qualify or not qualify. We needed somebody who knew how to do this, and Connie and her staff stepped up and did this for us. So there's a huge thank you to all of them. They were awesome. They did all the screening of applications. If somebody didn't know how to fill it out, we told them, call Connie's staff, and they walked them through it. They helped them fill it out over the phone. They could walk the application in, they would help them. So they were incredibly helpful. Then they would tell Mountain Valleys who to write the check to. So I mentioned Jessica and Russ before at Mountain Valleys RC&D. They were wonderful. So we have to say a special thank you to them. They volunteered to help us do this. They stayed with us the entire time that we were doing the process, and they wrote all the checks to all the vendors, kept all the books for us, everything. So special thank you to all of them. And I can't say thank you enough to the health department for helping pull this together and for giving us an incredibly good resource. She was wonderful. She helped me write grants. She helped Mary write grants. Rachel Potter from the health department, outstanding. And I want to thank my fellow committee members, Ike and Pat, because the three of us, Ike, Pat, and I, were kind of the committee that if anything was between $500 and $1,200, we had to look at every one of those and determine yes, no on the application. And so we couldn't have done this without the whole group. They were incredible to work with. Most importantly, we hope the work we did made a difference in the lives of the folks that we helped. So we would think it did. It was truly a team effort. And thank you all for all your support.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Anna.
Next on the agenda is Daniel Metcalf, Transportation Operations Director.
Evening, Daniel.
Transportation Authority has 3 items requesting your approval and signatures. First 2 are dealing with the recent safety review that we had completed. These will get us in compliance with that review. The first item is the drug and alcohol testing policy needed to be updated, and I believe you have a copy of that. That was supplied to us as a template that the state recommended, so we usually need to do what the state recommends.
We need, Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the drug and alcohol testing policy as presented, as previously provided to us.
Second. Discussion. All in favor?
Thank you. The second item is the safety and security plan. We had the proficiency review last year, and during that process, we found that our SSP was out of date, so we had to get one in up to date. At that time, they did indicate to us that once we did have our safety review, we'd probably have to update that. So this is the plan with those updates based upon safety review. Just a few changes there.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Thank you. The third item is money. This is CARES funding, and this is our 3rd round of CARES. And we need to ask you to allow us to accept this money, which is a total of a little over 171,000.
Already have a plan for it?
Or, no, I'm sorry, it's 107,000. Yes, we hope this will help us cover the cost of gasoline.
Yes.
Got a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve.
Second?
Discussion. All in favor? Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you,
Very
Daniel.
much.
Thank you, Daniel.
You heard the auditor about those rope funds, right?
I did. That has been remedied.
Vicky is an excellent source on that if you need help. So, thanks, brother.
Next up is Carrie Ledford, Finance Officer.
Evening, Carrie.
Gary.
Good evening, gentlemen. Before you, you will find item A, which is budget amendment number 9. This amendment records the continued additional revenue received by our Register of Deeds office. Also recording additional revenues received into the occupancy tax fund as well as the fire tax fund, so that we do not receive the same finding on next year's audit. Both of these are agency-type funds where the county is the collector of the taxes and then disperses the amounts collected back out to the TDA and the area fire departments, respectively. You will see that recording as well. In anticipation of the cost related to the removal of the house at Beach Glen, additional funds are being allocated to your maintenance department. Also included is the recording of the Sheriff's Department allocation from the State Capital Infrastructure Grant, the SCIF grant. The department was granted $84,269.66. Within your packet, I believe, is the sheriff's plan for the expense of those funds. Finding also the recording of additional revenue generated by the quarter-cent sales tax of $51,851.59 that will be distributed to the Board of Education.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the budget amendment number 9.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Thank you, gentlemen. And the next thing you'll find is February's financial reports. We are in February at 66.64% into our budget. On the second page, you'll see that for all the funds, we've received 89.33% of our revenues, and our expenses are at 58.58%.
About what we were last year, or?
I think we're a little better than we were last
We
year.
were slightly better.
Yep.
Good deal. Is that it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Carrie.
Next up is Diana Norton.
Good evening, Diana. Good.
So the first thing is approval for the refunds and releases for February.
That's down quite a bit.
It is.
Ever. I've seen.
We're getting there.
Got a motion? Any questions? Matt, Michael?
Up there's behind you, also on the screen. Right.
No, I've got it. Yeah. Sorry.
Move straight forward. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. You got anything, Michael? Yeah, that's the smallest I've saw it. Matt?
No, I got none.
All right, all in favor? All in favor?
And the next thing is the foreclosure update. Kenya was at the courthouse last Tuesday. 3 properties were for sale. On Monday, 1 taxpayer came in and paid their bill in full. 1 property was sold and 1 is pending. We currently have 49 still in their hands right now.
They continue to do an excellent job.
They do. They're very good to work with. And the third thing is, I need some dates for the Board of ENR. And I've provided all the dates that are available at the co-op.
Those dates, gentlemen, you will find a calendar that Mandy handily did up for us today. And you will also notice, and we will come back later, to some proposed budget workshop dates. But if you will notice, in April, there are Board of E&R dates. When we discussed this, Diane and I, earlier today, it's early in the process, so she doesn't have many at this point. And historically, we take 2 or 3 or 4. We have multiple dates in here. And it would be, both as we're looking later at the budget dates, but also first at her dates. And we need to look at your schedules. Now, again, only 3 commissioners have to be present to make that a quorum. I will do my best to serve as many of those days as possible to make it easier on anyone else. I have none of those dates for which I could not serve unless we have some sort of emergency.
Should Donnie be at these? Donnie, have you ever been at them, or are you supposed to be at them?
You know, some of them are fairly just straightforward, which Diana is going to be there to present them to you. Sometimes there are complicated issues, and I think we pretty well just left it to Diana or the tax assessor to make the judgment as she lists those, and if she wants me to be there, then all she has to do is let me know and I'll be there.
To answer your questions, Donnie has been
Okay,
at them previously.
so
When
does
needed.
it has to be 3 commissioners, or?
Yes, it has.
Yes, okay, yes, by statute. So looking at your schedule, and we'll do the next one here in my part of it. We do need to know, and she needs to have you respond back to her. We don't have to decide that particular one right at this moment, but I would like to.
We do not, but the co-op would like the answer as
Oh, yeah.
quickly as possible because
By
I have
the-
all these days booked at this
Right.
time because that's all they had left.
Right, so by the end of business Friday, is that a
would be
reasonable
great.
request?
Yes.
Please let Diana know so that we can make sure and release any days. I am going to make the suggestion, if you look at the week of the 11th of April, Diana talked about this earlier today, we may be very busy, the commissioners, that week, and so if we strike, the first date that we would not use would be the 13th. We will try to work around and not use the 13th because it looks like we're going to have 2 Board of Commissioners meetings. That would take 3 days of the week. So we will use the 13th only as a last resort.
So are you talking about having a meeting every day we got on here, or these are?
No, I just need 3 dates picked,
Three,
but we
okay.
definitely have to have
So we can
one
do
in
one a
April.
week. Okay.
No, you basically probably need to really basically pick one a month. Would you not agree?
That's what we
Because-
typically do.
Because they come in at staggered times.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just get back to Diana by the end of the week.
All
Okay?
right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, Diana. I don't have my tablet crashed, and can you send us an email with these dates so that I'll have that in my to-do list?
Or I'll share a
Thank you.
chart. We have it. It's in my section.
Okay.
There's actually a calendar printed with it. Yeah.
Send me an email, please.
Okay.
Where are we
Thanks,
at
Diane.
as far as help with them in the tax office?
We'll discuss that in personnel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next on the agenda is me. So the country fire department had sent in 3 names for their fire commissioners. There's 3 vacancies, and Donnie has said we need to reach out and figure out when the last ones were on there, correct?
I think it's been a long time ago, Mr.
Yeah.
Sheldon. I talked to Mandy. I've been here for nearly 10 years, and I know we've not taken any action during that period of time. And I asked her to look back and see if we could find any records of any action that's been taken by that district. And
Okay.
we're gonna have to dig a little bit. I think what you've done, there's nothing wrong with it, and it's getting things up to date. We just need to go back and see where the original documents were when the county first dealt with that. So if
Okay.
you would just give us a little time to do some digging and see
Sure.
what we can find, then we can see where, it's always good to know where we are before we go somewhere else with it,
Okay.
if that's okay with you.
Yes, sir. That sounds good to me. All right. Next on the agenda is Norris with his 10 different hats.
All right, Mr. Chairman, other members of the board, public, some very quick updates. We are moving along very quickly with Golden Leaf. We have had the final visits from, including the project director, the lady actually in charge, and she has been through the county. Brad Guff and I attended Spring Creek when that group met, and they were very diligent in what they did. In fact, they stayed an hour longer than we anticipated they
Why
would
was
stay.
that?
Yes. And so we don't really know. We feel very good. There's a little bit of follow-up information that they requested. And we are still very hopeful that we will get 1, 2, or 3 of those grants, totaling north of $1.5 million if we're fortunate enough to get all of them. But also the enormous amount of effort that has gone in by the various folks in the county, the Spring Creek community folks, the school system, particularly the Career and Technical Education Department. A real shout out to AB Tech, who have been very committed in these projects, spent a real amount of time, and some of the best closing arguments in these discussions, quite frankly, have come from AB Tech. And then, of course, the Value Added Kitchen, which has been an incredible program through Ag Extension, and if any of these are not funded, it's called a product. In economic development or in grant writing and in going out and getting funds from somebody else, if you don't get funds from your first person or the second person you ask for, you have to have a product. You have to have something to present. And in all three of these cases, they are exceptionally high-quality products that will enable these things to have legs if Golden Leaf doesn't come through. Also, there is secondary funding from Golden Leaf that we have almost never taken advantage of in Madison County. And those are additional grants outside of the normal grant cycle. And so now all of the contacts have been made by these people, contacts have been made by the county. So this thing has a potential not only now, but for years to come. Just a few days ago in this room, we had the first get-together of the Courthouse Advisory Group on how we are going to proceed with investing the $3.8 million that has been appropriated by the General Assembly to help us work on this old lady. No disrespect intended, no chandelier drop, please. And how we do that and what other ways we may look at helping to provide for better court service now and planning for the future. The meeting was attended by all parties except one that was on the original committee, and including a Zoom, that was a link. They elected their officers, and they appointed Mandy, who has volunteered to be their clerk. And we meet this week to begin looking at options for how court will operate. We were assigned 2 individuals from that group to talk to where and find out where we could move court, how we could do that. And then next week, that advisory group continues their work here on the 15th. Those meetings are open to the public. Now, they are, all of this is a public activity. So if you want to check, Mandy, I believe that meeting is at 4 o'clock. Next week on the 15th will be the second get-together of that group. So feel free to come and find out exactly what we're doing, working forward to properly invest that money in this building and in other ways that will improve. You heard that we just this evening appropriated money and passed it over to Jesse's department, so we will have adequate funds to cover the demolition and removal of the house at Beach Glen. We have been aggressively seeking bids for that. Anyone else who would like to bid, please feel free to contact the county manager's office and we will provide information. We, at this point, do not yet have the minimum number of bids to proceed. We've had several people ask about it, but we need more bids. We have to follow certain processes, and we'd really like to get that house down and removed and the grounds taken care of because we have, through other sources, there has been a riparian grant that's for the creek, and those monies will be coming. So we need to get the house down, get that work done, and then we can proceed with other funds, which are already in the pipeline, to work on the creek and work on the park aspects there at Beach Glen. So anybody within the sound of my voice that wants to reach out about possibly bidding on removing of that house, we have information available. Please just reach out and contact us. Now, if you will look again, gentlemen, at the calendar, and I'm going to share mine with Matt. We need to have our budget workshops similar to,
I've got one.
okay, similar to, but they will be modified from the way we've done it the last couple of years. Carrie and I have looked at that, and we firmly believe we're probably going to need 4 sessions. Also, that will allow not to have a brain-dead session that stretches for 6 hours. These dates here, they begin on the 22nd of March, 31st of March, 5th of April, 14th of April, and the 19th of April. Now, if you'll notice, there's a little flexibility in there. But we really need to know pretty quickly. And again, take a look at those and please get back to Carrie. Yes, sir.
We talked, the 22nd was going to be our work session, and we had already previously agreed to move that, I thought, did we not?
We could, yes.
Okay, Garrison and I both have another obligation on the night of the 22nd.
All right.
So,
What nights, Mike, speak up. What night would work for you? Let's go ahead and talk about that right now. Would the 23rd work?
23rd works for me, and I thought that's what we had settled on, did we not, Mike?
We
Or
may have.
Am I misremembering things?
Yeah, we may have, and we just missed it.
No
Yes.
worries.
Yeah. Guys, are we good for the 23rd?
I'll have to check my other calendar, I think so.
Okay.
I tried it for the 22nd, so I don't.
Yeah. And now let's talk about a time, and we don't have to have the fixed time for all of them. As you know, I am an advocate of getting these moved a little earlier because we have staff that stays over, and we're also going to be pulling departmental folks. If we need to start later, we can, but the earlier we can start these, I think is best for everyone. We will have these at the library, okay, where we met earlier this evening. So first, what times? Are we good with 4? Can we do 3:30?
Well, Matt's,
Yeah.
what's best for you, Matt? I mean,
Well,
to try to
I'm
not have to
exactly
take-
the opposite. The later the better is for me, but I want to try to be
So what's the earliest?
I want to be
that you
understanding
don't
of
have to
everybody
take
else's
time?
needs. So, let's see. On Wednesday, on the 23rd, I could probably do 3:30 there on the 23rd if
Okay,
that works for you guys.
Everybody good with 3:30 on the 23rd?
Yeah.
Garrison, that good for you?
That's perfect. I've got all evening.
All right, the 31st.
Of March?
Yes, sir.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Time?
I would probably need to do 4 on that day personally.
Okay, are you gentlemen good with 4?
Yes.
Okay. Moving right
I
along.
think I should be able to be here by 4 on that.
We, quite frankly, as we're prepared to move forward, let's forget the 13th. I'm sorry, we struck the 13th for E&R. How does the 5th work? Now, I know we could have a double meeting that day. So we could either make sure that at least me and whoever the other 2 of you gentlemen are, and I know that that's the only day that we have a double up. And we might not have to have a board of E&R that day either, is where I'm coming from. So if the 5th works better, or the 14th, and or the 19th, and we need at least 2 of those 3 dates. So 2 of the 3, 5, 14, and 19. So what are the best 2 of the 3?
5 and 19 are best for me. Not to dominate the conversation here, but 5 and 19 are the best for me. But if we do the 5th, I can't do E&R and budget workshop.
Well, you wouldn't. Somebody else need to serve E&R.
Yeah, I mean, I can try and get other E&R sessions, but I couldn't do that
Yeah.
one.
And I really do think it's very good if all of us serve on at least one or more of the E&Rs.
Absolutely.
I think that's just a representation.
I think that's what we did last.
Oh, yeah, we did a good job last
Yeah,
year.
that's
Yes.
what we get paid for.
All right. 2 of the 3, we don't have to do the 5th. We could do the 2 days that are completely independent. We can, but you said you would prefer not to do 14. And,
I can't do 14. I'm almost positive I can't do the 14.
okay, can everyone else do 5 and 19?
Yes.
Yep.
5 and 19, going once. Michael, you good? And again, 3:30, 4 o'clock, man.
On the 5th, I could do 3:30. On the 19th, probably 4.
All right.
If that-
So let's
not to-
review.
Not to split hairs, but
That worked with me.
Carrie, you taking notes there too? All right, let's review. Our first budget workshop session will be Wednesday, the 23rd at 3:30. Followed by the 31st at 4. The 5th at 3:30. And the 19th at 4.
Yep.
All right. We have that scheduled, subject to unexpected change, of course. All right. Moving right along. The next item in your book is the review of the bids that were submitted for the 2022 mowing contract. These were opened last Friday, and an opening. We had one member of the community present. Mandy, Chris Maney, and myself opened the sealed bids at that point in time. We have 4 bids for your consideration, and they are attached behind. Bid number 1 is for $4,257 per cycle, which the cycle is per week. Bid number 2 is for $2,140. Bid number 3 is for $1,970. And bid number 4, which if you study it, they sort of kind of didn't quite follow the instructions and submitted a overall for the entire mowing season of 32 weeks, $152,640. So I'll give you gentlemen a minute or two to review, and you have those attached. And I'm very pleased that we got 4 bids, and I'll let you review that, and then we'll talk a little bit more before we. Okay.
First, I just have one question while we're discussing.
Yes, sir.
As far as the expenditure line item out of.
We will be appropriating a additional fund to get us through until June 30. Okay, Carrie and I were talking about that today. And there are funds that we can move into that category, and it will need to be in a separate category. It will be administered by Parks and Recreation, but it is a contracted service. And of course, we'll need to get the contracts executed and all of those appropriate things. The mowing contract for 32 weeks, while you're putting a number or two together, at $1,970, it comes to a grand total of $63,040. If we accept the $2,140 bid, those are the 2 lowest. I'm not saying that we just allow the others, that's a judgment of the board. But the $2,140 one is $68,480. Now, obviously, if we had an exceptional season that took us later into the fall, the weather is funky these days, we would need to start mowing as quickly as we could because, Michael, you and I were talking the other day, you and I could be out mowing ball fields if we don't, or Jesse's going to be pushed back into action. He's back here grinning. And so we do need to approve this.
I think Jesse just wants to see you mow ball fields.
I've done it before. I've done it.
These prices including the ball field?
Yes. I'm sorry, Michael.
we have got to do something to eliminate some of the strain on our maintenance folks. And if we have $65,000 or $70,000 to allocate towards that, I'm definitely in favor of it.
Yeah, and let me give you a little bit more background. The previous year contract that we paid last year, the contract was for $18,160 just for the ball fields. And all of the mowing, except for solid waste and the gun range, is in this contract. The solid waste department will be taking over, because it's in the middle of the landfill, the gun range, okay? They will be mowing that, and they will take care of all the convenience centers around the county. But every other thing that we've been doing, including the 21 ball field arrangement, which was $18,160. So if you look at that, then you can take that $18,160 off of the 63,040 or the 68,480. So you're actually looking at even the 64,180. It's actually a $50,000, not a full $68,000 increase. So now, the two maintenance positions that this would hopefully save for Jesse, that is at least a personnel cost of $95,000. So we are allowing the maintenance department to utilize a minimum, the most conservative estimate, because figure who you figure's doing it or what. So it's not like a fix. So we're trading off a $95,000 push in labor to the maintenance department for a 63 or 68.5 investment in mowing. So we're to the good. Yes.
Well, I want to just go back and reiterate the November 30th meeting we had with Jesse, presented some of the hurdles that are confronted with in the maintenance department. At that time, he had told us in 2013, we had about 10 inmates that helped do remodeling, do big projects. 2014, we had 4 full-time inmates and 7, I believe, part-time inmates that were doing work. So, we went from 10 to 11 extra employees doing work in the county to 0.
And we will not see the return of inmates anywhere in the foreseeable future. That legislation has changed, and even when COVID is gone, I think that for better or for worse, inmate labor will probably not be an option anywhere in the foreseeable future.
Also, looking at these contracts, I would like to entertain definitely the two lower bids seem more in line. They're in line with each other, and I think they're in line with the services rendered.
Yes.
And if there's any question about that, then maybe look at dividing those services between those two bidders. That way there's a sense of fair equality between them, plus it ensures we don't overload one particular bidder with all the contracts.
I think that's a very valid point, Michael. And we had good experience with our current bidder, and that is one of the two low ones. And then if something were to happen, we would have this shared, and it is a substantial contract. We're more than happy, if that's the will of the board, to go back. And one other thing that we were all discussing today, Carrie, Mandy, and I, and everybody else today as we discussed this, these bids were submitted when gasoline was half the price it is today. I think it would not be at all unreasonable, because fuel will be a serious consideration in doing this. But again, if you want us to go back, we need to do it quickly, okay? And we would have to have them rebid if we said it was going to be the two low ones.
Can't do that. Right?
I mean, if you're fine with splitting it between this, then I think you can award the bids to them and negotiate the contract if you award it to them.
Yeah.
Because you've already designated them as the low bidders. This is a service contract, so I think you're free to do that. I think the only way you would want to rebid everything is for some reason you go out and you talk to them, and the numbers that they give you that they want to are way
out of reasonable range.
reason, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you're talking about it, go ahead, Gary.
I'm sorry, can we do something like similar to what we do with contracts for rock clauses? Can we incorporate a clause that says that gas prices, reach X% or a dollar amount that, the county will step in and assume some of the financial responsibilities for that?
Yes, you can put you can award a number to them for mowing each one, and you can have an adjustment based upon the price of gas. That is, we actually use that in the,
Solid waste?
in the hauling
Yes.
contract from the transfer station down to Lakeway.
Yeah.
So yes, that is available.
Is it just a fuel surcharge, Donnie? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, it's a sort of a federal surcharge way of managing that, and, I think that's something that, given the economy as it is now, that would probably work well for these bidders. I mean, when they bid, they had no idea, and we don't want to enter into a contract that's going to put them at a disadvantage from day one. We want to be fair with them, so I think what's been suggested, you can certainly negotiate that with them. If you want to award it to the low, I think we can bring both of them in. We can work with both of those folks and add the surcharge into it, and hopefully, the commissioners could direct you as county manager they could award the contract and authorize you to negotiate contracts with them on a form that is approved by the administration, if that is clear.
I'm not a fan of doing two, because how are you gonna do it fairly where they're mowing? That's what we run into doing two.
Well, there are by individual, each bid, actually each of the locations is spelled out in the bid. So they give a price for each location.
What happens if they wanna do the same location? I'm not a fan.
Yeah. What we would do, if we did that, we would divide the locations, and we would simply say that, bidder A would have these locations, bidder B would have these locations. So they wouldn't be walking over each other. And all of them are bid by location, not as an umbrella. So we could do it either way. That was one of the intents in the RFP, was to issue it so that we would know what they were charging us, or saying they're going to have to charge us for each physical location. Yeah.
And if gas gets too much higher, we can just take the gas money and buy Roundup and be done with it all.
There's real spraying requirements around Roundup. Don't go out and start spraying the county property without all the proper license. There's really regulations around spraying.
Well, it stands on its own. This is the right thing to do. I mean, with Jesse sitting right there looking at us, and he needs those two men freed up. Mowing grass is important, but it's certainly not the most important thing in this county to get done. I would say that I think we've been relatively happy with our current person doing the mowing, so I'm a little leery to get away from that. But that's my opinion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we give, that we go with the low bid, which would be bid number 3, and give the county manager the ability to negotiate a fuel surcharge to complement that contract.
Second.
Everybody make sure that, so the motion is that we stick with one contractor.
1970.
Hearing the feedback from the board, I think one contractor is what they would prefer. I personally have no problem with splitting the contract. And I would amend my motion if the rest of the board felt that would be appropriate, but based on the feedback, it doesn't sound like that's where they're heading.
Okay.
But I would recommend, my motion is to take the lowest bid of the, considering the type of work that's being done.
I will follow the will of the board.
I'm looking.
So, am I to understand there is a motion on the floor?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
There is,
And that motion is that we go with the lowest bid.
Yeah,
Yes.
Correct.
The board does not want to entertain splitting the bid.
no. I mean, I don't. I mean, y'all can, if you want to, that's fine.
If you want to make
I second
a,
the motion.
Discussion?
I'm still discussing in my head, just give me a minute. Sure, y'all can't complain about that.
be worth the price of admission, buy a ticket to get inside your head.
Too much room, I don't have a room, I have a PhD up there, I can't, I don't have much room left. Smart aleck.
I know, guys. I know.
How much do goats cost, by the way?
Actually, they're quite affordable. We got some places where goats would be a benefit.
Yeah.
What we really have to look at, and Jesse and I have talked about this in the past, we really need, and we can work on this, it's something we can't do real quickly because we're hung and having to maintain what we got. But we could substantially cut back the amount of areas that we mow. We'd have to do a lot of landscaping and do some other things to change.
Do like the government, just let it all through.
Yeah, and, but we could reduce this in the future.
I think with the landscaping in the long run, you end up probably spending as much or more because then you're going to have to weed the landscaping and
It's a catch-22.
and spray that Roundup you don't like, Norris. So.
Discussion, I would discuss to go with the one that we had last year, which is the second to the lowest.
There's already a motion on the floor, Mr. Chair.
All in favor?
Okay, let's restate the motion, make sure that we do not split the bid,
Yes.
but that we go with bid 3, right,
Yes.
as a one-shot. That's the motion on the floor. We all in agreement?
That's correct. With the county manager having the flexibility to negotiate a fuel surcharge.
Right.
So you made the motion and Michael seconded.
Correct.
All in favor? Michael, raise your right hand.
Well, he could have changed his mind. Y'all could have made a compelling argument and made.
All opposed? Do I have another motion?
Now, Mr. Chairman, I really don't want to beat this point, but I agree with Michael that I think it is at least worthy to take a look at dividing the contract. So make some more work on me, and Lord knows, 80 hours a week, but we need to do it.
Not for long.
And I have no problem in working with these two low bidders to come up with an equitable way to divide it, if that's what the board will do. And I would prefer, as the county manager, not to make that motion if there is anyone else who would want to make that motion in second.
I make a motion, we go with number 2, 2140 a week. It's the same one we had last year.
And I already stated I was right there with you.
So, all in favor?
There's discussion yet, Mr. Chair. So in regards to discussion, I would reiterate, or I would reinforce the county manager's discussion as well as Commissioner Garrison's previous discussion. So if you want to split this contract, I would go on the record and say I'd be in favor of that. But I'll cease my further discussion at this time.
It's a motion on the floor, right?
Correct. I yield back to the chair.
Motion on the floor to split this.
No, I think the
The
motion
motion
on
is
the
going to
floor is
go
to
with
go.
last year's vendor.
Thought it was for.
No,
what
that's
Matt was
discussion.
talking
No,
about.
that was discussion.
Okay,
Your,
gotcha.
your motion is still on the floor,
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
all right.
You have a second, Mr. Chair.
You need to say anything, Michael? You good?
I'm sorry, I can't hear. I heard the motion and I heard Norris's statement. And I concur with Norris. I'm the one that said start with,
Right.
as far as the discussion goes.
I had made the motion to use the same one we used last year.
Right. Yeah, I heard that.
I seconded it.
And the discussion. And-
Yeah, in the interest of fairness, there's absolutely no reason why we wouldn't want to split those, bids up, share the, the ability to do it. That way, if one deal or something happens, more goes down, plus you're dividing the county's money between two different people. I think, I've said all along, I thought that was a better idea than going to one person. I mean, I know both these people, so I don't have a problem with either one of them mowing.
Well, I know this one that did it last year has his own insurance. I didn't see that in the others.
The insurance is a requirement to make the bid.
Okay.
Yeah. Proof
Like
of
he's
insurance.
the only one that,
Yeah, proof of insurance is a requirement to submit the bid.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. All in favor? All opposed?
It looks like it's
Mr.
going to be,
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we split the bid between the two low bidders.
I'll second that motion.
Contracts.
Discussion? Nope. All in favor? All opposed?
all right. I will reach out to the two low bidders and we will make every effort to get this mowing going next week. Okay?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Next, we have a proposal that comes from Carrie, and Donnie, I think you're aware of this as well. We need to change how we do the community promotion funding guidelines as we go into, and this is the appropriate policy and procedure that, quite frankly, we have not had in place before for what we would consider community funding, okay? Which is we have every year. It turns into a fairly good discussion. And this is the legal guidelines, along with the standards of assurances that you see from the state of North Carolina, that are standard procedure. And I'll give everybody a couple of minutes to review this, but we are requesting, management and finance, that we approve this. This is one of these things that everybody, we should have had this done in the past. It will make sure this process is done correctly and legally.
So I read this, I thought it was really good, but my question, I'm not clear, where did it actually come from?
Had a conversation with Donnie about it, and I feel like we need to do this process to do our nonprofit funding. And since the budget is right on our tail, we need to do it soon, so I reached out to Donnie and help he supplied the information.
Okay.
I think that what Carrie was actually doing was doing exactly what a finance officer should do.
Right.
When she is reviewing her budget, she wants to make sure that what she presents to you all and you all fund that in the event that it's audited or it's looked at, that it is going to comply with the appropriate procedures. And based upon, nonprofit funding occurs with every governmental, local government in North Carolina. And there is a process that is out there that's pretty standardized that says if you're going to fund nonprofits, basically you're giving public monies to non-public agencies to spend. And you can only legally do that if they use them for certain purposes and they provide to you the appropriate documentation they have used it for those purposes. So I just basically researched what those guidelines were and sent her the standardized forms which will meet your minimum legal requirements to fund nonprofits. I think it's a good procedure to have. I think if you're going to fund nonprofits, you've got to use this process.
Thank you, Donnie.
Any motion, Craig?
I'll move that we approve the policy as submitted.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
All right, moving along. county-owned surplus property. Bid 1 that you will see is of $2,770.00 for PIN number 976919, sir.
The supplement that was given to us, is that for one or that's, okay,
That is for the second one.
okay, I got you.
Yes,
So
sir.
we're bid, okay, in addition to bid one, I said, sorry, my mistake.
No, we're good. A deposit for PIN number 9769193641 has been made of $194,995. The property contains 0.5 acres with a tax value of $10,724. We need to vote to accept, deny, or counter the offer as requested on behalf. And so what is the will of the board? The bid is $2,777.00.
This is the first bid, correct?
To the best of my knowledge.
So-
Correct, Mandy?
We've had bids on it previously,
That
but
were-
not of recent. And the bids were much lower than this.
There you go. They were rejected, if I remember. So, but I guess I should have stated my question. This is the first bid at this particular time.
Yes, it is.
So this will start the upset, if we accept this bid, this will start the upset bid process.
Correct.
For this piece of property. Okay. So that being said, I would make a motion that we accept this bid, on this property and, start the upset bid process. And to the general public, knowing that we still, at the end of it, have the ability to reject whatever the final amount ends up being.
I'll second that. Discussion.
Makes perfect sense.
All in favor?
Bid number 2.
That's this one now, right?
That is correct.
All right. That's the bid. I'm lost. without-
Addition at each BOC member's seat due to advertisement upset period ended on this property yesterday. A bid of $150,000 has been placed with a deposit of $7,500 having been received. On February the 8th, 2022, the Board of Commissioners voted to accept the bid, and the bid was advertised for upset with no upset bids being received. The property consists of a total of combined acreage of 56.6 acres and a combined, easy for me to say, tax value of $1,311,615. A vote to deny, accept, or counter offer the bid for final sale is requested on behalf of the board. The PIN numbers are attached.
I make a motion, we accept that bid.
I will second that motion.
Discussion.
Y'all be ready to have him come before Board of E&R.
Discussion. You got anything, Michael?
It cannot.
All in favor?
For the
No.
Board of E&R. It, transactions during the 8-year octennial period are not subject to
Very good.
modification, so you will be receiving the tax payment based upon the appraised value.
All in favor?
Assuming that he paid.
Matt? Okay.
I'm in discussion down here. Y'all railroading me.
Never.
Well, I want to go on record as saying, the most we've ever offered for that was less than half of that amount.
Yes.
And we've been trying to sell it for how long?
Yeah.
A week or 3.
Forever.
Yeah. All right, coming to the most confusing part for me of every meeting. I sort of laugh about that, but it sometimes seems to be the case. We have 2 board vacancies currently. You will see the applications behind you there. And one is for the, Amanda, help me out here. I think we just one, isn't it?
Yes.
There I go again. I need a roadmap.
Blame it on the cataract. No.
Oh, I'll blame it on the infinity. Any rate, what is the will of the board? Now, the vacancy does go and can go to be filled by economic development. That seat can be filled by economic development.
So I make the motion. accept this application, Brad.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Any discussion? You got that, Michael? Okay.
Can I get clarification?
Please.
What board it is? I'm sorry.
This is the, pardon my cataract, which I'm getting out in a couple of weeks.
Transportation
Yes. That small print is unreadable.
Oh, yeah, I see it now.
To me. Moment.
All in favor?
All right. Mr. Chair, to the best of my knowledge, my report is finished. Let me just double check the front here again to make sure my list. So I move that we go to closed session for attorney-client privilege and personnel.
Personnel is NCGS 143-318, period 11A6. Attorney-client privilege is 143-318, 11A3.
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
And we will go to the jury room for gentlemen.
They're made in America.
Ms. Brooke?
The animal service, the animal shelter is requesting the hire of Penny Charles for animal enforcement officer.
Got motion?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
The 911 department is requesting the hire of Curtis Chandler as a 911 dispatcher.
Motion to approve?
Second? All in favor?
The solid waste department is requesting the hire of Amy Rice and Joe Griffey as part-time collection center attendants.
It's so moved.
Second? All in favor?
Right. Thank you, Brooke. Gentlemen, I want just a moment to bring you up to speed on where we are with the jail. We continue to work diligently for the reopening of the jail. The meeting today included all the appropriate staff and a highly qualified mechanical engineer who was referred to us by PFA Architects. The gentleman changed his schedule. Last call was like 10:30 last night. That meeting today was very productive in terms of processing to get the building reopened. The humans who have worked in this, including everyone who was there on Sunday, and when the state folks were there yesterday and we were meeting, they were very complimentary of all of the human aspects involved, all the procedures, all the proper everything that could be done. The deal, it has to do with the mechanicals in the building, and it does not relate to the maintenance of those mechanicals. It relates to technical issues which are being resolved, many of which may go back to the original design and installation. Hopefully, it will be a matter of a few days. We'll get that resolved. The insurance company was notified on Sunday afternoon. Marla went out of her way to file that paperwork. The county has been notified back officially that the insurance will cover many, many things, including the relocation of inmates and those factors. And our deductible will be $1,000 unless we have a certain special category. Awesome. So I will keep you informed day to day by text or by phone as to where we stand, but I think we're making good progress in getting the jail issues corrected and getting it back to full operation. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, everybody good with that?
Good work, Norris. Good job with your leadership through this and everybody else that had a hand in it.
Everybody has been
Greatly
extremely
appreciated.
cooperative.
Yep.
We've had excellent cooperation from everyone, including the state. All right, Mr. Chair, no one else has anything else. I move that we adjourn.
Second? All in favor?